And again, we are taking the pro player rank tier list craziness and we are converting it into something that is usable for the average or newer player. The tough part about this is getting you guys to admit that you're probably an average player if you're watching this. Almost nobody is in diamond or above. I think it's only like the top 8% of players, right? So these tier lists just like really don't apply, right? I mean, they're good. It's good if you want to understand the meta, if you're interested, but 9 times out of 10, what I see is gods end up in the top of these pro player tier lists here on the left, and then they get played in normal matches. People feed, people don't know how to play, and you end up feeding your brains out, right? So we're going to take this, we're going to look at this with the lens of what is this like for a newer beginning player, and we're going to see if we can help you guys out. First off, you know, this is not the be all end all, right? This is not, you know, if you're good with a god, or if you feel really strong on a god, or if you have 27 stars on Arachne, like just based on where I put a god does not necessarily mean like they're complete dog ass, with the exception of Loki. So take it with a grain of salt. This is, again, is really meant to help the new or average player, or somebody who's just getting into Conquest, or even just getting into the game. Like, you know, we loaded in today with a match, and somebody who was a brand new player picked up Persephone and really wasn't sure what to do. So, you know, we're gonna try and help out the newer folks. So just so everybody knows, I kind of got rid of the tier letters here. I think it's kind of confusing. I translated it into what I mean when I put somebody somewhere. You know, if they're in this top tier, they're absolutely broken. If you want to win games, learn how to play this god. A lot of these, especially ones like Pele, Arachne, Thanatos, Susano, and a few others, I'm going to be coming out with guides on how to play them, you know, just quick 7-minute tips on how to play each god. So if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, do it right now. If you're in my Twitch chat right now watching this, ! YouTube, fucking do it. Put your hand on the button and do it. All right, so let's dive right in. Let's talk about Fine OK's S tier. So the first pick that he has is Nemesis. I actually think Nemesis is a good beginner god, but I do not think the current meta favors it. The way that newer players excel on Nemesis is with her ability-based build, which is a shitload of cooldown. So you can spam your shield, you're highly mobile, your dash is up all the time, you can get in, you can get out, you get in, you get out. And it doesn't favor newer players right now because the meta is to build Hide of the Nemean Lion, which reduces your auto attack canceling and that kind of ability-based assassin damage. Now, that said, if you are a newer / average player, I actually don't think you're going to be seeing too many Nemeans on carries. That's more of a higher level play thing. So if you're playing Nemesis and you see that you got some newer players out there, you can actually go the ability build. The one that I've been doing is like Crusher, Trans, Hydras, Crusher, Trans, Hydras, Erendite, Heartseeker, after your boots, right? And it's been working out pretty well. So try that out. Let me know what you think. She's definitely strong. She's not busted. She's got decent clear. You can go Golden Blade on her. You can go Crusher on her. It doesn't matter. Next up is Baca Sura. I'd actually put Baca in the mechanically challenging category. The reason for that is that with Baca, it's easy to get a lead with Baca. It's extremely hard to team fight efficiently with Baca. Or just even the ability-based Blamin. You don't actually have to auto attack cancel with the Nem. But it's extremely hard to position well with Baca. You kind of have to wait until the fights start. You need to wait until people are separated. You need to wait until abilities are down. If you're a newer player that doesn't know how to look out for those, or doesn't know relic timers, or isn't paying attention to stuff like that, Baca's going to be challenging for you. You'll farm really well. You'll buy Golden Blade. You'll kill camps. You'll get your invades off. And then when it transitions into the late game, you're just going to jump in too early. You're going to get exploded. Everybody likes to be this like big initiate, puke on everyone. And it's just never going to happen. He is a left click character. So, I mean, if you're playing against people that are really, really not good, you can do well on him, but I don't think he is as good for the majority as Fine OK has. By the way, yeah, this is Fine OK's tier list. He is a fantastic player. Check out all of his content on YouTube and Twitch. He's amazing. He gave me permission to use his tier list. So kudos to Fine OK. Thank you very much, my man. Next up is Cthulhu, busted, OP. You could be blindfolded, and drunk off your ass and play this god, and you just build a bunch of defense, a little bit of damage, press your 4 button and W key at people. He is a fan-freaking-tastic new player god. He should be first pick in every game below plat, I would say, because most people don't know how to deal with him in that level of disruption. And he's actually a great complementary pick for somebody like Baca. I talked about this the other night in one of my Arachne games. We had a Cthulhu, and my instruction to them was, hey, get in the back line, disrupt them, spread them out, make them run in different directions, because then I'm going to come in and delete them. That's a very good pairing with gods like Baca, Kali, where you really need someone in there just shaking shit up to make it happen. Cthulhu's a great character. All right. Next up is Freya. Where is she? The broken girl herself. Freya's nasty. Anybody could play her. She's super safe. She does not have terrible clear. You pair her up with a nice guardian, like I don't know, anybody who has clear, really. And she's going to dominate the lane. It's real easy to build 4 rings and left click people all day long. When you get into trouble, you get up in your ult. If you get dove, she's fantastic. I would play the hell out of her, and I think she should definitely be a first pick when you're in ranked at pretty much all levels right now. Heimdall. I'm going to drop Heimdall down to average, kind of in the good if you know the god well category. Heimdall is he's a very easy character to understand from a base level. He's very hard to be good at. People don't know how to use his crystals efficiently. They don't know how to auto attack cancel with him. You see a lot of people very confused on what to build on him. And I really just don't think that people effectively play Heimdall. I don't know what his win rate is, so I'm not sure if I'm really speaking from facts here. But I would imagine at lower levels, it's probably not very good. You kind of win the laning phase and you just get picked off over and over and over again. Let's see, who's up next? Olerin? Olerin, I think, is in the strong but not busted category. I think he's very good. His teamfight ultimate is very good, but I think the average Olerin player right now is not really great at executing him. Once you get into like the diamond or higher level, they start to play well. They start to know how to use their self-peel. They start to really have well-timed ultimates. But most of the Olerins that I've seen are people who play Olerin who are at the mid to lower level of play, tend to get farmed out pretty hard. He doesn't have an escape per se. It's really just his ultimate, which is a good like way to dissuade people. But I don't think he's particularly good right now for the average player. He's definitely a strong character. So if you know how to play him, you can do well on him. But I don't think he's insane. Next up is Uller. Uller I put in above average. His kit is not as mechanically challenging as it used to be. He gets a free lane, so if you're laning with him well, I think the place where people fall down on Uller, especially if they're newer players, is when it comes to transitioning into the late game after you've rotated out of your lane. Everybody's really good at throwing axes at their lane opponent and trying to combo them. Nobody's really good at team fighting with Uller, so for that reason, I put him in above average. All right, moving on to Thor. Thor goes in the mechanically challenging territory. If you don't know your combos with Thor, you're not good at picking and choosing when you use different abilities with Thor. He is terrible. One of the funniest stories about Thor is they buffed Thor to his strongest state on paper from a like damage perspective that he'd ever been in. So it does the most damage in the least amount of time than he had ever done in the history of the god. And his win rate went down because he got put under the top of a pro player tier list, and everybody said, oh, I can play Thor. Thor, Weekend and Final Case said Thor's the best god in the game. I gotta play Thor. He's the best god in the game. And his win rate went down because it's very hard to execute on him. No, actually, I covered it. You weren't here. But no, Thor is mechanically challenging. If you don't know how to play him, he's really tough. But so for that reason, I move him down. Persephone. For a newer average player, she's dog shit. Don't play her. She's bad. Most people don't know how to take advantage of her kit. I think she's terrible. Her ult is pretty much the only thing that's good about her if you are a newer player. So if that's all you're there for, then great. If not, ignore these tier lists that put her up really high, because for the most part, newer and average players tend to fail on her more often than not. Moving right along, Amaterasu. I think Amaterasu is an average. She's a good character. She does well. You know, her kit's pretty easy to understand. She's relatively safe. I'd actually probably slot her above average if I'm really being honest here.
Psst, I think that guy's following you.
More on tap. Thanks for the follow, and glad I could help you, my man. Exactly. So we have somebody in the chat who just said, I can't play Perse. It just seems like I'm not doing anything a lot of the time. That's exactly the problem with Persephone is if you don't know exactly how to execute on her kit, and you don't study a pro player over and over and over again on stream, you're never going to be able to execute with her. It's not good. Moving on. I'll actually put Aphrodite up here in strong but not busted. Newer and average players tend to not build a lot of anti-heal. It feels really bad when you're a new player building anti-heal because you want the Spirit Desolation. You don't want the Divine. You don't want the Brawlers. You want the Jotuns when you're in the jungle. You don't want the Cursed Ankh. You want the Blink when you're a newer player. And making that conscious decision to pick up anti-heal is what makes Aphrodite weak. Anti-heal is a very strong stat and people just don't pick it up. So she tends to just get away with shit that she shouldn't. I was on a Smurf the other day helping out a friend. There's an Afro in game. I was the only one who built anti-heal and they ran all over us. I'm not an Internet Explorer. It's Firefox. Who's next? Arachne. If I could make a tier above busted OP, I would make one solely for Arachne in her own category. Hang on. I'm going to do it right now. We're going here. We're dragging it. It's going up here. OP ass Arachne. This god is the dumbest, most broken character in the entire game. If you are a Diamond 5 or below player and you don't pick this god, you are out of your brain. She's insane. The golden buff, or the golden blade buffs, Jesus, made her even better. The fact that it's so cheap, the fact that she can get online, the fact that you can build 3 katanas out of the gate and just destroy people and run them over makes Arachne absolutely bonkers. She is the best 1v1 god in the game throughout the entire game. She can 1v1 any of these characters at any point in time and come out on top. And she is the master of picking off people who are out of position. This means your mid laner who tries to go for a red buff by himself. You see that, you kill his ass. This means a support who pushes up a little bit too far or uses their leap to get into a fight, you kill their ass. The only thing that's tough with Arachne is that late game transition, similar to Baca, where you kind of have to wait for fights to start. But if for some reason you go in too early, she has this crazy ultimate that's a self-banish that gives you damage immunity to get herself out of trouble. If you get somebody alone with Arachne, they are dead. If you pick Arachne, you should put the enemy team so far behind that it is impossible for them to come back. I'm also going to be releasing a how-to Arachne video that comes out with the start that I like to do on her, the build that I like to do on her, and some considerations as you play her. So keep an eye out for that. She is disgusting. She's gross. And a lot of newer players don't know how to deal with her. Moving right along. Hades, strong but busted. He's good in the soul lane. He can build a bit of sustain. He actually is one of the highest win rate gods in the game right now, up there with Arachne. I think his kit's pretty easy to understand. New players are bad at beadsing. The only thing he has against him is that if you're not paying attention to beads timers, he's kind of dog shit. Hebo, I'd put this under mechanically challenging. With Hebo, you got to have good positioning. Like, you got to be able to hit very finite abilities. You got to know when to engage. You got to know how to use your ult to secure kills or secure objectives without totally putting yourself out of position, or putting yourself out of position but taking 3 people with you. I'm moving Hebo down for sure. Herc goes into strong but not busted. He's got a self-heal. People are bad at building anti-heal. The only thing is that for some reason people are really bad at hitting his 2, but it's not that big a deal. You can pretty much just build prots and walk at people. Horus, I would put him down in average if you know the god well. He is slightly mechanically challenging. Most new players don't take good advantage of his ult, but if you're good at that, then he'll be fine. Jing Wei. Jing Wei is... and this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think she's broken for newer players. She gives you a free lane. You can back constantly. If you get soloed, you come right back to lane. You're always going to do something in late game team fights as long as you build correctly. She can make up for poor positioning or bad rotations. If I'm all the way in the left and my team is starting up Fire Giant on the opposite side of the map, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to get over there, I can just back and fly halfway there. and get right back into it. She can join team fights in the mid lane if she's late to them or late on a rotation. She's got 2 escapes, both in her ult and her dash. Jing Wei, way up there. For me, anyway. Capri. God. Capri's going to be hit or miss for new players. I would say he's strong, but he's not busted. The issue with Capri is that new players don't know how to use the 2 to give your team damage mitigations, and they don't know how to, or you see a lot of people ulting really inefficiently. Everybody tries to hold their ult for this like frame perfect, like if I ult too early, my teammate's dead. If I ult too late, they're dead. When the reality of it is half the time, just by putting that on someone, it gives them a whole bunch of movement speed. The enemy team stops attacking them, and you've done your job, right? I think Capri's very good. Rama, above average. You got to be able to hit your ult shots. He's pretty safe. Got good clear. I could throw him there. No problem. Let me see here. Wukong, strong but not busted. Wukong is a great free lane for new players. I almost exclusively recommend that new solo laners play Wukong. He's got really safe clear. You can build pretty much whatever you want. He's got a self-banish. He's got CC immunity. He's got a really long dash. He's one of the safest people to lane with in the solo lane. As long as you're not getting your charge canceled when you try and get out of trouble, Wukong's a great safe option. All right. Moving right along. Yamoja, I'll put in above average. You know, she's kind of almost down into the average, good if you know the god well category. I think you'd be kind of brain dead and do well in Yamoja, but you really got to be able to hit your stuff and really know when to use which abilities. I think in late game team fights, you get these Yamojas that build a whole bunch of cooldown, build a whole bunch of mana, and just spam their 1 with the Omi over and over and over again. I would say the best qualities of a good Yamoja is knowing when to use their 3 and their 2, not necessarily their 1. If the enemy team doesn't have any anti-heal and you just sit there and fight, just spamming your 2, giving your team health and shield, health and shield, health and shield. She's really, really good. And so knowing when to use each of the abilities is really important. All right, Mulan. Mama Mulan. Where are we putting Mulan? I think Mulan's average. Where is she? Am I blind? I'm blind. There she is. Mulan's average. She's got good sustain. She's a decent lane. You max your 2 out on her to start, and you pretty much fight anybody. The only problem with Mulan is that newer and average players are not going to know how to use her ult well and will often put themselves out of position, which is pretty tough. She wouldn't be my first pick in the solo lane, but she's definitely solid if you understand the god and you play her well. Let's see. Who's up next? King Arthur? Dog shit. Don't play him. He's bad. He's even worse now that Glad Shield isn't a thing. Even if you buy Soul Eater, you're not as good on him as the pro players. Garbage. Complete dog shit. Most people do not know how to play him well. Let's see. Hun Bats. Hun Bats. I mean, I'll put him in above average. Actually, no. Average. You got to know the god well. You got to know when your ults are going to be the most impactful. You got to be counting on timers. He's not super mechanically challenging. He's mechanically challenging to play at like the highest level, but if you just use your abilities on people, you're going to be fine with Hunbats. You don't even have to get into auto attack canceling or anything like that. Yeah, you're a diamond to masters player, Alpha Wolf. Of course, he seems good to you. Let's see here. Ho Yi, mechanically challenging, borderline dog shit. The only reason he's not dog shit is because if you're just good at landing your ults and your auto attacks with Ho Yi, you're going to be fine. New Ho Yi players are literally the worst. I absolutely despise new beginning average Ho Yi players because they always try and go for the highlight triple bounce. They have no idea where the bounces are. Instead of just pulling off a straight stun on people, they do this like tricky MLG shit and they end up costing themselves lanes in games because of it. The only reason he's not in dog shit territory is because if you are 4 levels behind and you pull off a good Ho Yi ult, you could turn a team fight. If all you do is hold left click on somebody who's chasing you down, he's fine. But that is the only thing keeping him out of dog shit territory. All right. Fafnir, average. Good if you know the god well. The reason I say this is because he's kind of got a mechanically challenging kit to hit. He's got 3 skill shots if you count his leap in dragon form, which is like 8 miles in a little tiny triangle. But he is pretty safe, right? You could blink in, hammer, leap on somebody to disarm them, transform, stun them again, and then leap away. So he's a very safe god if you like to play aggressively, but you really, really, really got to be good at hitting your stuff. There's been pro players that have been kicked off their teams because they couldn't hit Fafnir stuns. And, you know, Fafnir was in the meta. So be careful with that one. I wouldn't necessarily, invest too much into playing him unless you really, really love the god. Cupid, I'm actually going to bump up to strong, not busted. Cupid ults late game against new players are like totally damning. Cupid with a bunch of power, pen, and cooldown is insane right now. So I'm going to move him up there. Camazotz, he's really a solo laner. I would say good if you know the god well. You need to know how to sustain. You need to know how to use your abilities effectively in the solo lane. I think a lot of people don't know that when you play Cama solo, you actually max your 3 first and leap on the minion wave and the enemy player. They don't know how to group up the waves so that you cleave the whole minion wave. So, you know, lacking those skills, Camazotz is not great. But if you do know how to do that, you know, you jump, you leap on the backline archer, or you just walk to the backline archers. You throw your one on the enemy solo laner. That means the melee minions are now going to come closer to you, which means that you can leap on all 6 of them and you can cleave auto attack. If you know how to do that stuff, Kama probably bumps up a couple of ranks for you, but really it's good if you know the god well. Ardio, she's not really in the game right now, so I think people are trying to figure out where she's going to shake out. I think she's average. You got to know the god well. You got to know how to manage her mana. You know, newer players tend to run out of mana with her because they sit there and they spam their abilities. Let's see. Achilles. I actually think Achilles is going to move up to above average. He's catching some buffs. His kit's easy to understand. He's safe. So I'm going to move him up. AMC drops to average. Good if you know the god well. I mean, borderline mechanically challenging because he doesn't have an escape. Ao Kuang. Ao Kuang is borderline busted. I think I almost want to put him in busted OP. People don't know how to peel. People are late on beads. People blow their beads without, thinking of what that's going to mean. Ao Kuang, honestly, you build Hecate, Boots, Typhons. You pop your 2, and you W key at people and auto attack them to death. As long as you are not throwing your 2 for damage, Ao Kuang is good. You pop your 2 and you auto attack them down. That's it. That's all you have to do the whole game. You know, even his early game isn't that bad. You can't really fight as much as other characters, but just farm up, get those items online. Once you're 3 to 4 items deep on the Ao Kuang build, you're insane. All right, Bologna. Bologna, above average, easy to understand kit. People know how to execute with her. Not well. I think, you know, again, it's kind of that auto attack cleave thing. I don't see a lot of newer Bolognas group the wave up so that you cleave with your 2 and hit the whole wave. If you figure that out, she's definitely going to be good. Next up, Cerberus. Where's the 3-headed dog and Freya lover? Cerberus is dog shit. Most people can't hit their 1. They miss their 1. They ult poorly, and they have to leap away usually. Don't play Cerb. I don't think he's very good. Erlang Shen. I don't know which role this is, but I think Erlang is in the average category. I don't think he's that great. Malachi, you're a god on Cerberus, and you know how to play him, and you play him a lot. Let's see. Who's up next? I can't tell who that is. I think that's Raijin. No, it's not Raijin. Between Erlang and Hachi. Guan? No, it's not Guan. Oh, Ganesh. Ganesh is busted. Extremely good god. Extremely good god, especially for new players. You know.
Is that a gifted sub, or are you just happy to see me?
Podge, thank you for the gifted sub to Phoenix. You know, the thing about Ganesh is he's really easy to play. I mean, I don't think you need, as long as you can hit your dashes and you throw your ult on top of the enemy team, he's good. You could play Ganesh anytime, anywhere, any day. Hi, Rain the Pain. Any day of the week. He's fantastic. Who's up next? Hachi. Hachi, strong, not busted. Hachi's super safe. He's kind of in Jing Wei territory where between his dash and his ult, you got the whole lane that you can travel. Hachi's good. Hell, down in, I would say, good if you know the god well. Not a ton of anti-healing. Our kit's a little complicated if you're not cleansing or debuffing at exactly the right times. So definitely good if you know the god well. Let's see here. Kali. Kali's probably in the mechanically challenging territory. I know what you're going to say, Wraith. Oh my god. All you have to do is press your alt and left click people. But she's kind of along the same vein as Baca, which is if you're not paying attention and when all the hard CC is down, who on the enemy team really screws you over when you dive, how much hard CC they have, you know, what abilities are down, what actives are down, Kali gets shredded. So for that, I'm going to move her down here. Merlin's in above average. He's a good god. You know, I think you can pretty much just roll your face across the keys and you'll do well with him. Nuwa is mechanically challenging. Yes, you can hit 4 late game if you get 6 items and do half the enemy team's health in damage, but most people are terrible at using her passive, terrible at combining the damage from her Shining Metal and her Clay Soldiers. Most people don't know that you actually have to hit the Shining Metal and the Clay Soldier explosion to do all the damage. They think that if you just hit the Clay Soldiers, that's what pops people, but you have to hit both of them. So for that, I'm moving her down mechanically challenged. Neith. Neith is in the strong but not busted category, especially with her buffs. She's super OP, especially in the mid lane. I think Neith is fantastic with the ability build. Nija, mechanically challenging. His entire kit is skill shots. Similar to a lot of the other junglers like Cirquet, you have to put yourself out of position into the enemy team to engage or to set up or anything like that. So newer players tend to be terrible at that and they don't know what to do. They go up in the air, they take somebody down to half HP or kill them, and then they come back down and they just get exploded. So new players don't really know how to trade. They miss a lot of blink ults. They have to blink out of places because he doesn't have mobility outside of his ult. So when he gets caught out, he usually has to use his ult to get away. So that's not good. Pele. Pele's in strong, not busted. Pele's an easy and underrated character. I actually think it's a mistake where Final K has her. Even for Masters players, she's a great god. Play her. I'll have a guide coming out about her. She's fantastic. Poseidon, I actually also think is up in the strong but not busted category. He's easy to play. He's safe. He's got good clear. He's got an easy to understand kit. He's got an easy to understand ult. There's lots of gods that you can combine with Poseidon in order to do heavy damage, like Daji, Ares, Geb, Sylvanas. There's so many setup gods that you could play with and against, and it's a really easy thing to understand. And really, new players to Conquest tend to transition from Arena, and the first thing you learn in Arena is how to combine big CC with big ultimates. His 2 makes him pretty safe, and I think the one thing that newer players screw up on Poseidon is that they don't hold their 1 for self-peel. They just try and do as much damage as they can. Raijin, above average, very safe, very easy clear. I actually think he's a pretty good mid laner beginner god. Let's see here. Who else? Rat, above average, easy to understand kit. He's a little easier than Thor, a little safer than Thor. Cirquet, mechanically challenging. You got to be able to hit your 2. You got to know when to use your 1 or how to use your 1. She's got high mobility, so you can get yourself out of sticky situations. But for the most part, what ends up happening is new players will just ult somebody off rip to start a team fight. They get exploded, and it kind of wastes their entire kit. Set, dog shit. Don't play him. He's a good god right now. He's very hard to play. I struggle personally with playing Set well. I don't think new players should be trying him unless you have received specific instructions from somebody who is very good at the god on how to play him. Next up is Sobek. I actually think Sobek's in the strong but not busted category. Sobek, to me, is like the perfect beginner support and solo laner. He's got a dash. He's got sustain. He's got 2 knockups. He's got CC immunity. He's got a big AoE that's easy to understand and get yourself out. He's got a CC immune ult that a good amount of sticky situations. Sobek to me is the perfect solo and support god. I would play Sobek if you've never played anything else because he can get himself in and out of bad situations. You miss a pluck, you've got your ult to get you out. You get low on health, you got your 3 to get yourself some HP back. You run out of mana, you just ult and you gain it all back. I think he's a very good character. Soul, I'm actually going to put above average. She's relatively safe. She's a really good magical ADC. There's a lot of itemization right now that helps out the magical ADCs. I think you could do well on Soul if you want. She's not hard to understand. You know, she really has 2 abilities that you have to hit. The rest of it's auto attacking, and her auto attacks are extra wide compared to everybody else, I think. Let's see. Terra's average if you know the god. Really has a weak laning phase, which I think people will struggle with. If you pair up with somebody who does really well in lane, like an Izanami, Terra can be good. But I think magical ADC autos are wider than normal ADC autos. I'm almost positive. Can somebody at Flareboot and ask him? I'm almost positive. But Terra, weak laning phase, easy to understand her kit, but if you're put behind at level 1 or 2, it's really hard to come back on her. So that's why I've got her there. Morrigan, yeah, dog shit. You need to know every other god's kit in order to be able to use her well. You could probably use her at a surface level just by building a whole bunch of power and poly and one-shotting people, but most people don't know how to use her transformation well. They just go for kills. I have not seen a good new player Morgan ever. Ever. In any way, shape, or form. Let's see here. Who's up next? I gotta take a breath. Vimana, above average. Easy to understand kit. He's actually got good sustain. Again, if we're assuming that people don't build anti-healing at lower ranks, he's very good. The fact that he could just walk at the back line and do stuff is awesome. Jing Chen, strong but not busted. Very safe god. If you read his kit once and understand how it works, you can do pretty well on him. His ult's easy to understand. His ult's easy for the team to understand. And he can get himself out of sticky situations. Ymir, average, I would say mechanically challenging only because positioning is important with Ymir. A lot of people screw that up. Pro players screw up positioning with her. Or him, sorry. So I would put him down. Actually, I'll move him to average. Good if you know the god well. Zhang Kui. Oh. I actually think he's above average. I think he's solid. If you don't understand his kit, you build a little bit of lifesteal. Zhang Kui's good. He's tanky. He can mix it up in fights. He can self-peel. He can do damage if you just, exist. Long Dong, thank you for the follow, man. All right, and now we move on to the most controversial god in the entire game. Most of you should not be playing this god. Most platinum players should not be playing this god. Most diamond players should not be playing this god because 99% of people do not understand how to play this god, and they ruin their team's games when they play Yanis. I honestly should probably make a guide on how to play Yanis effectively. For the average player, it's a little different when you're in competitive because of the ward coverage and awareness of the enemy teams. But everybody positions poorly with Yanis. They never stay near walls. They always use their one to poke people out, even in late game team fights, which is a giant waving red flag that says, please, for the love of God, come kill me. Most people don't know how to use them. They end up wasting their ultimates because they put themselves out of position with their one usage. They need awareness on where everybody is on the map. How to team fight without your team around you is something that Yanis does very well. Yanis is fun, though. That's the problem. Yanis is great, and Yanis is one of those gods where even if you lose, you can have fun on him. So I understand where you guys are coming from, but if you're a newer learning player, like you got to watch the pro players play him. I'll come out with a guide on him, or, my philosophy around playing him, and see if it's helpful for y'all. But until then, Kronos, mechanically challenging. Chernobog's actually pretty good. I'd put him in above average. You can rotate to team fights if you're late. Kind of got weak clear, but he's got good damage immunity in his dash. Easy to understand kit. Just got to get to late game. So I'll put him in above average. He compensates for the thing that new players do really poorly, which is poor rotations. Who's next? Baba Yaga. Dog shit. Most of you don't know how to play her. Most of you don't know how to use her ult. Even Hurrywind and Wolfie and everybody else said they feel like most people don't understand Baba Yaga because they don't use her ult appropriately and they don't use the rest of her kit appropriately. It's extremely complicated. You have to know what each ability does for all the different variations. Dog shit in my book. Does it really matter at lower levels of play? I think that remains to be seen. She's kind of in the Yanis territory where she's really fun to play. But most newer players end up just spamming damage and right, and trying to get kills with it, and it just never works out for them. Let's see who's up next. Agni, average but good if you know the god well. If you watch one of my other coaching videos on YouTube where I coached my cousin, it was obvious he just didn't know the god well, right? He was in a great position. He had great clear. He had great poke, but he didn't combo well. He didn't know when he was safe. He didn't know when to aggress. He didn't hit his ultimate very consistently. If you know the god well, Agni's actually really good. He's a hard counter to a lot of other mid laners because he can do heavy damage from longer distances than they can, with the exception of Thoth, right? So Agni is a big time counter to somebody like Raijin, because Agni can hit Raijin and Raijin can't hit Agni, and also Agni can interrupt Raijin's one with his stun, right? So if you know the god well, he's average. He's decent, right? All right. Honor's mechanically challenging, easy from a baseline understanding. Most people don't know how to pillar stun. Most people don't hit the stun. Most people only know how to clear and ult late game. Yeah, he's in the mechanically challenging category for me. Anubis is strong, not busted. Anubis has great clear. It's something that newer players struggle with, is getting out cleared. They don't know what to do when they're pressured, and Anubis basically eliminates that as an equation. Also, again, we're assuming newer players don't pick up anti-heal, which makes Anubis incredibly strong. If you look at the charts of how well Anubis performs at the low level, he actually does an insane amount in terms of win rate. So I like Anubis in the strong but not busted category. Lifesteal is really powerful right now. Typhons is really powerful right now. It combines with his passive to do really cool stuff. And, you can get poked out in a team fight, run, throw your 3 on a wave, and you come back, you're full health. I think Anubis is fine. The only thing that's wrong with Anubis is newer players tend to put themselves out of position pretty heavily, and they don't know how to play safe once there's anti-heal on the board. Moving right along, Athena, strong, not busted. I think her kit's easy to understand. I think a lot of people underestimate Athena's taunt and Athena's range. Similar to Chernobog, she's able to alter herself into team fights that she is late to or should have been at, which is a strong suit of Athena's. She can get herself out of sticky situations. She's got good clear. She does good damage. The big thing with Athena players that are newer is they always try to do damage with the 3, and it ends up screwing their team over. So they'll dash in, and they'll throw their 3 down, and then they'll taunt. When you have a Poseidon with Whirlpool and Kraken sitting right there, and if you just dashed and taunted to begin with, he would have followed up with all the damage. So as you transition into the mid and late game, be careful with Athena. Just dash and taunt. Have your dash charged while you're walking around the jungle. You don't need to do damage to camps to clear them, especially in the mid to late game. That's my best advice for you. I can do a how-to Athena too if people are interested. Let me know in the comments. All right. This fucking god. Wheelix is above average. Nothing else to say. I hate this god. I don't want it. Baron, average, good if you know the god well, and solo. I hate a Wheelix, but she is above average right now. Let's see. Who's next? Cabrakan? I think Cabrakan sucks, personally. He's not mechanically challenging. It's not hard to know when to use his abilities. He's just not good. If you know him really well, like really, really well, I'd say he's pretty good. But most people don't. Chunga isn't even mechanically challenging. I would say average if you know the god well. But not great. Why pick Chunga over any other character on here? In the soul lane, in the mid lane, there's really no reason. You should never pick her in support. She's just not good in my book. Chiron, strong but not busted. His ult is always impactful even if you're behind. He's got good escape and mobility. I think newer players are really bad at maximizing his kit with the use of the 1 to cleanse allies, but that's not essential to be a good player on Chiron. Discordia, strong not busted. I actually think she's like borderline busted. Her kit's easy to understand. She's got decent mobility. If you know how to play Discordia right, she's really good. But even if all you do is sit there and just wing out abilities in team fights and throw your apple, you'll do fine with her. Geb, strong, not busted. Super underrated character. I don't know why more people don't play him right now, especially with crit being in the meta. Be interested to hear some feedback from some pros who I doubt are going to watch this, but you never know. I don't know why Geb isn't better. I think it's just because there are stronger options and pressure is really important right now. But I think he's very good for a new and average player. He's good at getting idiot teammates out of bad situations. So I think he's solid. He's not as complicated as say like a Capri, right? Where you really have to be good at timing the ultimate. Guan Yu. Guan Yu will sink into the above average territory. His kit's easy to understand. Sustain is good right now, especially at lower levels because people aren't building anti-heal as much. So I'll put him there. Hera, mechanically challenging. Just because you got to know from a positioning perspective and when to maximize the use of your 3. How to combo your abilities with Argus. So I'll put it down mechanically challenging. It's kind of like a not great territory also for this category. Let's see. Izanami. Izanami is busted for new players. You get a free lane. She's easy to understand. She can take objectives by herself. Just do the right build. Don't fall behind. This is pretty much for the average or new player, Blugan. You could pretty much have like the support could leave you at level 2 and Izanami will still be able to hold down her lane and get farm. Yorma Gunder. Yorma Gunder's strong, not busted. You kind of have to know how to use his kit in solo, but he gets basically a free wave. Tip with Yorma Gunder, throw your 1 on the blue buff camp at like 20, I think it's like 25 seconds after the match starts, and your jungler will be able to come and clear while that pool is still there. And you can go to the wave. But he basically gets free wave pressure. He's got a self-banish for when he gets into trouble. He's got good mobility. He can surprise people. He does damage. He's solid. Kuzenbo, strong, not busted. New players hate the shit out of Kuzenbo. Build some prots and just walk at people, reflect damage back at them. Kuzenbo's awesome. Medusa, I would put her in above average territory. I actually think she's probably better than that. Most people aren't good at punishing her. She's got a good ult that newer players are really bad at juking out or kind of being on the lookout for. With the changes to her 2, she's a lot safer in lane, and her kit's really easy to understand. Absolutely. Yeah, this is Fine OK's list. I probably should have put that up here somewhere, but let's see who else. Shibalanki. I mean, I think Shibalanki's average. Solid. He's okay if you know the god well. Ravana, this is a misplace. I think Ravana is in like strong but not busted, like borderline OP territory. The god's got 2 CC immune abilities. He's super, super simple to understand. Ravana's up there on the list of like gods where if you're new to jungle, you should play him. You build a little bit of damage, you build a little bit of tank, and you figure out how to engage on people where you walk up to people instead of blinking or ulting onto them, and you'll do extremely well with Ravana. Put everything on instacast, you'll be fine with him. I think this is a highly underrated placement for Ravana. He's one of the top picks in the SPL right now, so he's definitely good. Osiris, I would put him in mechanically challenging because most people don't take advantage of his kit and his passive very well. He doesn't do well with Soul Eater right now, so there's not a lot of sustain options. You kind of have to get into that Gaia, and really, you basically have to bully the shit out of your enemy lane opponent, level 1 and 2, or you're never going to win the lane with Osiris. Moving right along, Mercury. Mercury's in above average territory. He's actually pretty easy to understand. The thing that most players do poorly with Mercury is they don't just auto attack people late game when their autos do 1700 damage. They still try and throw out the 1 or use the ult to land directly on top of somebody. That's the other thing that they do. Like for the most part, people ult straight through fights. Later or the higher ranks you get, right? You don't ult yourself directly on top of a carry. You ult straight through fights to disrupt the team fight, force out beads, and give your mid laner or your ADC or somebody else the opportunity to do heavy damage on their front or back line. Like, people try and hit the perfect distance ult with Mercury. And And you know, I would say that's like the one thing that everybody is really poorly on Merc. I'm gonna have another guide coming out for him. Nike is dog shit tier. Actually, I changed my mind there. She's probably an above average. I don't think you're gonna see a lot of new players buying Sunder. I don't think they know that counterplay yet. I don't think you're gonna see a lot of it. Ra, average if you know the god well. You just gotta have really good positioning. You gotta be able to hit your ult. His clear is safe. His kit's easy to understand. I would put him in an average rank here. Scylla, same thing. Minus the positioning. You really just got to be able to hit your kit on her. She doesn't have the greatest early game. Greatest early clear. Susano, above average. You could pretty much be busted. You don't have to auto attack cancel. Honestly, if you just build a shitload of power and pen and ult into a late game team fight, you're going to half health the entire enemy team. So if that's all that you do, you can be good on Susano. His kit's really easy to understand. He's pretty safe, mobile, and good. Sylvanas, average is good if you know the god well. You got to be able to hit your abilities, hit your pulls. He's kind of in Ymir territory where he has no mobility, so you got to be really cognizant of your positioning. Thanatos, busted. OP, play this god if you are a new player. Nobody on the enemy team is going to know how to deal with Thanatos' early damage, early pressure, or the way that he is able to rotate so quickly. Thanatos is the #1 pub stomp god in the entire game. Build a Crusher, build a Hydras, build some power, and just raffle stomp people. Thanatos is a great god. Thoth, dog shit. Don't play him if you're new. Most people don't know how to maximize his kit. It's terrible. Most people don't know how to hit his abilities, which is even worse. Let's see here. Tier? Yeah, he's okay. He's good if you know the god well. He's got good sustain. B tier. We're starting to get into the gods that are not good in the meta and also harder to play. We'll put them in. We're gonna rename mechanically challenging to tough for new players. So we're gonna have both, right? So it's mechanically challenging / tough for new players. So we're gonna throw Zeus down there. We're gonna throw Vulcan down there. He's a little mechanically challenging. Gotta have good positioning. You gotta know how to use your abilities. Gotta hit your abilities. People are really bad at hitting Vulcan ults because the travel time on the ult changes depending on the range of it. Odin, strong. People don't know to auto attack the rings. He's a very simple character to understand. He does a ton of damage. He's good at all levels of the game, even if you're behind. Odin is a good god. Nox, dog shit. Please stop playing Nox in my games. Kernanos, probably above average. Easy to understand kit, good clear. You know, most people don't know how to maximize use of the one, but it's not that big a deal. Zeus is good in like arena, but most of the time you're going to get picked off and nobody knows how to position so the enemy team can't see them with Zeus. Bacchus, tough for new players. Most people don't land their flops. Actually, what the problem with most new players is they don't know how to. Nobody uses the burp into the flop, which I've noticed. Right? Like, they don't know how. Like, everybody goes through the blind flops. Like, just burp and then flop on people. It's that hard, or it's that easy, right? Stop going for the blind flops until you know the distance and travel time of the ability. I've seen more players go for like these all-in flops than I care to admit. I've done it myself. When the reality of it is, if you just hit the stun first, it guarantees your flop. If you know that they don't have beads. Yeah, it's late game positioning and team fighting, sir, not a clue. He's not mechanically challenging. He's tough for new players because they get their 5 attack speed items online and then don't know how to play the late game team fight when the other team is grouped up and waiting for him to initiate on them. And a lot of newer Bacas tend to initiate team fights when they shouldn't. They should wait until somebody else disrupts it. It kind of spreads out the back line. All right. Who is next? Ares. Super mechanically challenging, tough for new players. But that being said, if all you do is build a bunch of pros, you get to level 20 and you blink ult, he's solid. You can burn beads with him. The issue with Ares is that as soon as you fall behind even a level, it's really bad. And the other problem is that you have mid laners who are level 18 right now while supports are level 13, which is really bad. And, you know, a Poseidon Kraken when he's level 18 and you're level 13, even if you're ahead of the other support, you're dead, right? So that's a big problem with Ares. Apollo, I'm going to put in the above average category. He's easy to understand, really basic kit. And he, like Athena and like Chernobog, can rotate to team fights that he's late for, which is good. Bastet, easy to understand, but she's kind of a dog shit character in general right now. I would say if you know her well, you could probably get away with her. She just does a bunch of damage. You need a lot of other CC along with her to do well. And a lot of newer players are really bad at knowing when they're going to get yeeted when they jump in. But that's not that big a deal. Shock, above average. New players, really easy to understand kit, built in to sustain. It does decent damage to the wave. You're almost never going to get pushed under tower and bullied out, as long as you have some cooldown built. Daji, mechanically challenging, tough for new players. Even adapting, misses his powwow shots. So don't feel bad about that. You really have to know when to engage with Daji and how to use her well. You guys can't see it, but I put her in the mechanically challenging tape. I'll move this to the middle after we're done here. Fenrir, he's probably average. People are bad at using their beads and utilizing their beads. You can build him kind of tanky with a little bit of damage and do well with him. I don't think he's like tough for new players at all. His kit's pretty easy to understand. I haven't seen a good newer Fenrir, but he's not like terrible, like down in this area. Isis is above average. He's got good clear, easy to understand ult, good secure. Kukulkan, strong but not busted. We were playing with some new players the other night, and we had somebody on our team who was playing Kukulkan. I think it was Taylor. And new players will walk in his abilities. They will not pay attention to where the ult's coming out from. Kukulkan's pretty safe. He does a bunch of damage. He's got good clear. I like Kukulkan a lot for new players. Newer or learning players. He's strong and safe, and that's all you really need where you're playing in the mid lane. As long as you don't lose lane and your lane doesn't collapse, you're going to do well in the mid lane. And a big part of that's clear. That's why you see gods like Kukulkan, Poseidon, Anubis up here on my list. Scotty, tough for new players. You know, her kit is easy to understand. A lot of new players like her, but the second you get a jungler who knows what they're doing, they're going to farm the Scotty. Kumbhakarna, strong, not busted. CC and cooldown is the most annoying thing for new players. Like, the most annoying thing for new players. Everybody hates it. You build a whole bunch of cooldown on Kumbha, you know, you get like a, you get your boots, your Thebes, a Pridewind, and a Mantle online, and you are just annoying as all hell. You're impossible to kill. He's got tons of mobility because of his one, which is on a short cooldown to begin with, and then his ult. Like, you can get in there, you can mix it up, you can peel really well, you can engage really well. I think Kumba's one of the better picks for newer players, for sure. Let's see. Cucullin, average, good if you know the god well. Opwash is dog shit. Loki is dog shit. Especially, they're going to rework him, so it'll be even more dog shit, so it'll be hard for players to understand. And then Artemis, mechanically challenging and tough for new players. The reason I say that, doesn't have, you know, you got to be really good at using your traps. You got to be good at using your entire kit. You got to be good at using Tusky. The one saving grace that Artemis has is that if you're behind and you rotate, actually, I'll move her up a category. If you're behind and you rotate and you dump your ult, you're probably going to be okay. You're going to have an impact on the team fight. Your Tusky's going to stun the hell out of everybody. It's high value ultimate, even if you're 2 or 3 levels down. So for that, I'll put her in average, good if you know the god well. So I'll move this over so you guys can get a good look at it. This is the ending tier list. This is where I put everybody. Again, please remember, if you are watching this on YouTube, this happened with the last one of these that I did for the Season 7 tier list. This is for new, learning, average, like think like Plat 2 and below players, right? You're not on the cusp of greatness. You're still at the point where you have to learn the game really well. This is my tier list for those players. There's tons of tier lists out there for ranked. There's tons of tier lists out there for pro play. This is what it's like if you are an average player. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. We're going to have a discussion here in Twitch chat about what everybody thinks here shortly. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.